There is someone who has been carrying something heavy for a long time. Not the kind of heavy that shows on the outside, not the kind that people around them can see or name. The kind of heavy that lives quietly behind the eyes, behind the smile that still show up at the right moments, behind the voice that still answers when someone calls. This person wakes up most mornings with a familiar feeling they cannot quite explain. A pulling sensation, like something is pressing on their chest from the inside. They have been praying, they have been waiting, they have been doing everything right, or at least trying to. And yet, the thing they are waiting for has not come. Not yet. They have started to wonder, in the quiet hours, when the house is still and the world has gone to sleep, whether it is ever going to come at all. That person is you. And this message has been waiting to find you for longer than you know. You are not here by accident. You did not stumble onto this video because the algorithm had a good day. Something older than any platform, something that does not operate on human timing or human logic, has placed this message directly in front of you at this exact moment. You may not fully believe that yet. That is all right. You do not have to believe it in order for it to be true. What you need to do right now is simply stay. Stay and listen, because what is about to be said in the next several minutes was not written for a general audience. It was written for you, specifically, personally. With full knowledge of what you have been through, what you have been carrying, and what you have been told, silently or out loud, about whether or not you are worth waiting for. You are one of God's chosen ones. And before you dismiss that, or shrink from it, or tell yourself that label belongs to someone more deserving, more polished, more put together, I need you to understand something. Being chosen does not mean being perfect. It does not mean having it all figured out. It does not mean your life looks like a testimony yet. Being chosen means you were selected before you were formed. It means the assignment was placed inside you before you ever had words for it. It means that everything you have walked through, including the hardest parts, especially the hardest parts, has been preparation and not punishment. But you already know that somewhere inside yourself, do you not? There is something in you that has always known you were different, not better, different, set apart in a way that has sometimes felt more like isolation than honor. Here are the signs that you carry. You have been having clearer dreams lately, or dreams that feel more like messages than ordinary sleep. You have been experiencing a frustration that is difficult to explain, a restlessness that has no clean source, a sense that you are supposed to be doing something, but you cannot yet name what it is. You have been feeling a sudden and unexpected distance from people and places that used to feel like home. You have been seeing the same themes appear in different places, the same messages showing up in songs, in conversations, in things you read, as if someone is trying to get your attention through every available channel. And you have felt more than once that you are standing at the edge of something enormous, something that has not quite arrived yet, but is close enough that you can feel the air changing around it. These are not coincidences. These are not signs of anxiety or restlessness or spiritual confusion. These are the marks of a chosen one who is approaching their moment. These are the signals that heaven sends when it is preparing to move on your behalf. You are what some would call an earth angel. Not in a way that floats above the difficulty of being human, but in the truest sense of the phrase. You carry light that this world needs. You carry a capacity for depth, for love, for understanding, for resilience that most people around you cannot fully see yet. You carry a mission that was not designed by you and cannot be undone by anything that has happened to you. The enemy of your calling has known this longer than you have. That is why the Opposition has been so specific. That is why the delays have felt so targeted. That is why there have been moments where the weight of it all made you question whether the calling was real. It is real. You are real. And what is coming for you is real. Heaven has paused everything around you to deliver this message. The ordinary rhythm of your day, the scroll of your feed, the noise of everything competing for your attention, all of it has been held for just a moment so that these words can land where they are supposed to land. This is not a coincidence. This is a consecration. You have been chosen not only for what you will do, but for who you already are right now, in this moment, in this season, in this room or this car or this quiet corner where you found this message. The waiting that you have been living inside of is not a sign that you were forgotten. It is a sign that what is coming for you required time to prepare. Not you alone, but the circumstances, the people, the doors, the resources, the full arrangement of everything that needs to be in place for your next season to hold the weight of what God has ordained for your life. You could not have received it earlier. It would not have fit the person you were then. But the person you are now, shaped by everything you have endured, refined by every year of quiet faithfulness, that person is exactly right for what is about to arrive. This message is not early. It is not late. It is here at the only moment it was ever supposed to be here. Heaven did not say soon. Heaven said now. You already know what it feels like to wake up in the middle of the night and not be able to name why. Not because something specific happened. Not because there is a crisis you can point to or a problem you can solve before morning. Just that feeling. That low, steady ache that sits somewhere between your chest and your throat. The one that has no clean explanation and no easy cure. You lie there in the dark and you wait for sleep to come back, and sometimes it does and sometimes it does not. And either way, you are left with the same quiet question that has been following you for longer than you want to admit. The question that sounds something like, is this it? Is this all there is? Is something supposed to be happening that is not happening yet? That is not anxiety talking. That is not depression. That is not a sign that something is wrong with you. That is the sound of a chosen one in a season of positioning, and it sounds like longing because it is longing, but not the kind that empties you, the kind that was placed inside you as a compass, the kind that will not let you settle because you were not made to settle, the kind that keeps pulling you forward even when forward feels invisible. There are 4 things that people in this season recognize, and I want to name them for you now, because no one else in your life is probably naming them. And when something goes unnamed, it grows heavier. When it gets named, it becomes something you can carry differently. The first thing is a sudden wave of sadness about the past. Not grief over a specific loss, though that may be present too, but a more general sadness. The kind that washes over you when you are driving or doing dishes or sitting in a meeting. A sadness that seems to arrive without warning and without a clear address. You find yourself thinking about things that happened years ago, about versions of yourself that did not get what they needed, about roads you did not take and doors that closed before you were ready. This wave does not mean you are stuck. It means your spirit is doing a kind of inventory, reviewing everything that brought you here so that you can leave it behind fully, not partially, not halfway, but completely, before you step into what is next. The second thing is that familiar places and people have started to feel heavy and strange. Places you used to love, people you have known for years, routines that used to comfort you. There is something different about them now. Not because they have changed, but because you have. You have outgrown the container that used to fit you, and everything in that old container now feels a little too small. a little too tight, a little too ordinary for what you sense is happening inside you. This is not ingratitude. This is not pride. This is the natural sensation of expansion, of a life preparing to move from one season to another, and the old season doing what old seasons do, which is releasing its grip on you even as you release yours on it. The third thing is a recurring dream about an unopened door. You may not remember it clearly when you wake up. You may only carry the feeling of it rather than the image. But there is a door in your dreams that you keep returning to, a door you are standing in front of, a door that is right there, close enough to touch, and yet it has not opened yet. Some nights in the dream you reach for it. Some nights you just stand and look at it. Some nights there is a light coming from underneath it, a warm light that tells you something is alive and waiting on the other side. That dream is not random. That is your spirit showing you the truth of your situation. The door is real. The door is close, and the reason it has not opened yet in your waking life is not because it is locked. It is because the exact right moment for it to open has not yet arrived, and when it does, it will open fully, not partially, not a crack, but all the way. The fourth thing is that the same message keeps appearing in different places. You hear a song, and something in a lyric lands like it was written for you. You read something, and a single sentence stops you completely. Someone says something in conversation that echoes something you were thinking privately. A video finds you at the exact moment you needed to hear it. This is not coincidence, and it is not magical thinking. This is the way heaven communicates with someone who is being prepared. When a message needs to reach a chosen one, it does not arrive through one channel. It arrives through every available channel at once, like a frequency being broadcast, and the chosen one is the only one who can fully receive it. I want to also acknowledge the specific pains that come with this season, because they are real and they deserve to be acknowledged before anything else is said. The insomnia is real. The kind of sleeplessness that is not about caffeine or screen time, but about a spirit that is too alert, too awake, too aware of something shifting to fully surrender to rest. The loneliness is real, not the loneliness of having no one around, but the loneliness of being in a room full of people and still feeling like no one in that room quite sees what you see, or feels what you feel, or understands the depth of what you are carrying. The feeling of being wronged is real. The quiet accumulation of moments when you gave your best and it was overlooked, when you were faithful and you were not rewarded, when you showed up fully and still somehow ended up behind. And the feeling of being misunderstood is real. The experience of trying to explain what is happening inside you and watching the other person's eyes go slightly blank because they do not have a frame for it, because what you are carrying does not fit neatly into the language most people use for ordinary life. These pains are not signs that you are broken. They are signs that you are being held to a different standard and prepared for a different outcome. Now I want to say something about waiting, because the word has probably started to feel like a burden to you. Every time someone tells you to keep waiting, something inside you tightens a little, because waiting from the inside does not feel like a spiritual posture. It feels like standing still while the world moves around you. It feels like being overlooked. It feels like being punished for something you did not do, or for something you did do and have long since repented of. It feels like everyone else is receiving while you are still asking. But I need you to hear this clearly. What you have been calling waiting is not waiting. It is positioning. There's a difference, and the difference is everything. Waiting is passive. It is sitting with empty hands and hoping something falls into them. Positioning is active. It is being placed deliberately and precisely in exactly the right location, so that when the moment arrives, you are already standing where you need to be. You have not been forgotten. You have been positioned. You have not been overlooked. You have been protected. There is a distinction between being ignored and being placed, and you have been placed. Every single experience of this season, every delay, every closed door, every relationship that ended, every plan that fell apart, every morning you woke up and had to choose to keep going, all of it has been the work of a positioning that is more strategic than anything you could have arranged for yourself. You are not the person who was left behind. You are the person who was kept back on purpose, held in reserve, protected from timing that would have brought the blessing before you were fully able to hold it. And now the positioning is nearly complete. When something is overlooked, it is set aside without intention. No one is thinking about it. No one is watching over it. No one has a plan for it. But when something is positioned, the opposite is true. Someone very intentional placed it exactly where it is. Someone with full knowledge of what it is capable of and what it is going to be used for placed it in that specific spot and left it there, not because they forgot it, but because they knew exactly when it would be needed. You have been positioned. God has not forgotten your name. God has not misplaced your file. God has not given your portion to someone else. Your portion is being held. Your moment is being held, and the holding is almost over. If you recognize yourself in any of what has been said here, if these words are landing somewhere specific inside you, if something is rising in your chest that feels like recognition, like finally, someone is saying the thing you have been feeling but could not articulate, then I want you to type the words "I see it" in the comments right now. Not for me, for you, because naming what you are experiencing is part of how you step into it. When you say "I see it," you are telling heaven that you are awake. You are telling God that you are paying attention. You are telling your own spirit that it does not have to keep whispering, because you are finally listening. And if this message has meant something to you today, if it has brought even a moment of clarity or peace or recognition to a season that has felt very long and very dark, I want to gently ask you to consider supporting this work with a donation. Not because you have to, not because it is a requirement, but because messages like this one take time and care and intention to bring into the world, and there are thousands of chosen ones who need to find them. When you donate, you are not just supporting a channel. You are becoming part of the reason that the next person in their darkest moment at 2 in the morning finds this message instead of something that leaves them emptier. You are part of the reaching. You can find the donation link in the pinned comment below. Give what you can, give what feels right, and know that even the smallest offering from a chosen one carries a weight that ordinary giving does not. Please also take a moment to like this video, to share it with someone who you sense is in this same season, and to subscribe so that you are here for what comes next. These simple acts are how a message that was meant for one person finds its way to 10,000. You are not just a listener here. You are a carrier of what this message is trying to do in the world. You are seen, you are known, you are positioned, and what is coming is already on its way. There is a moment that comes in every chosen one's journey where understanding is no longer enough, where the words that have been spoken over you, the truths you have recognized, the signs you have identified, all of it reaches a point where it needs somewhere to go, where the knowing needs to become doing, not because action earns what God has already promised, but because the body needs a place to put the faith, the hands need something to hold, the mind needs a practice, a rhythm, a small and repeatable act that says, "I believe this is real. and I am going to show up for it every single day, even on the days when I cannot feel it. That is what this part of the message is for. What I am about to give you is not a complicated system. It is not a program that requires discipline you do not currently have, or time you cannot spare, or equipment you need to purchase. It is 3 steps, 3 simple, portable, practicable steps that you can do today, right now if you need to, wherever you are, in your car before you go inside the house, in the bathroom at work, in the 5 minutes before the rest of your household wakes up. These 3 steps are a protocol, and in the tradition of the chosen ones who have come before you, a protocol is simply a sacred agreement between you and heaven that says, I am showing up, I am ready, I am here. The tool that holds these 3 steps together is called the return practice. It is called that because everything it asks you to do is an act of returning to what is true, returning to what has already been given, returning to the frequency of someone who knows who they are and whose they are. You do not have to be in a perfect emotional state to do this practice. You do not have to feel faith before you begin. In fact, this practice was designed specifically for the days when faith feels furthest away, for the mornings when the weight is heaviest, and the evidence is thinnest, and the voice of doubt is loudest. Those are the days this practice was made for. Those are the days it will do the most work inside you. Step 1 is this: before you do anything else, before you check your phone, or speak to anyone, or allow the noise of the day to fill you, you are going to remember one thing that did not happen to you. Stay with that for a moment, because it sounds strange at first. Remember something that did not happen. But hear what this means. Think back across the last year, or the last several years, and find one moment where something could have gone much worse than it did. A situation that could have ended you, but did not. A relationship that could have taken more from you than it did. A health scare that turned out to be less serious than it first appeared. A financial crisis that somehow, in a way you still cannot fully explain, did not swallow you whole. A moment where you were close to a decision that would have cost you enormously, and some quiet instinct or unexpected interruption or door that closed just in time kept you from it. That thing that did not happen is not luck. That is protection. That is evidence of a hand over your life that has been working on your behalf even in the seasons when you could not feel it or see it or name it. When you remember that thing, when you hold it in your mind for even 30 seconds and allow yourself to feel the full weight of what it means that you are still here, still intact, still breathing, still capable of receiving this message, something shifts in your nervous system. Something shifts in your spirit. The story that says you have been forgotten begins to loosen its grip because the evidence says otherwise. The evidence says you have been kept. And a chosen one who remembers they have been kept is a chosen one who can face the day with something other than fear. So that is step 1. Sit with one thing that did not happen. Let it be evidence. Let it be enough for right now. Step 2 is a spoken declaration. And I want you to understand before I give it to you that there is nothing mystical or superstitious about speaking words out loud. There is something deeply human about it, and something deeply ancient. Every tradition across history, every wisdom lineage that has survived long enough to be passed down, understands that the spoken word carries a weight that the thought alone does not. When you think something, it lives in the interior. When you say it out loud, it enters the world. It crosses from the invisible into the visible. It becomes something that exists outside the private space of your mind. And for a chosen one in a season of waiting, that crossing matters. The declaration for this practice is built around a concept of time that you need to carry with you. It is this: There is a difference between the time that is measured and the time that is appointed. The clock measures. God appoints. The calendar tracks. Heaven ordains. What the clock says about your age, about how long you have been waiting, about how much time has passed since the promise was first placed in you, that is measured time. But your life does not operate only on measured time. Your life operates on appointed time, and appointed time does not follow the clock. It follows the covenant. It follows the promise. It follows the word that was spoken over you before you were born. So the declaration for step 2 is this. You speak it out loud, clearly, in whatever space you are in, and you say it as if you mean it even on the mornings you do not fully feel it yet. You say, I am not behind. I am not forgotten. I am not too late. I am operating in appointed time, and what has been promised to me is already in motion. I do not need to rush and I do not need to fear, because the appointed time does not miss its mark. I am a chosen one. I was selected before I was formed, and this is my season. Say it once, then say it again. On the days it is hardest to say it a third time. Something in your body will respond. Something in the atmosphere around you will respond. You are not performing a ritual. You are aligning yourself with a truth that has been true about you since before you could speak it. You are simply catching up to what heaven already knows. Step 3 is the one that will change the most for you if you allow it to, and it is the simplest of the 3. It requires nothing from you except 7 minutes and a willingness to be still. 7 minutes of silence. 7 minutes of intentional stillness, with your eyes closed if you are able, in a place where you will not be interrupted if that is possible, with no task to complete and no problem to solve. Just 7 minutes of open, receptive quiet. Now I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking that you have tried to meditate before, and your mind does not work that way. You are thinking that silence feels uncomfortable, or that 7 minutes of doing nothing feels like 7 minutes of falling behind on a list that never gets shorter. I hear that, and what I want to tell you is that this is not meditation in the way you have tried it before. This is not about emptying your mind or achieving a particular state. This is about making yourself available. This is about creating a 7-minute window in your day where you are not producing, not performing, not managing, not maintaining, just available, just open, just present and still and willing to receive whatever needs to come. 7 minutes is a number that appears again and again in the research around what happens in the brain when it is given space to shift from its default survival mode into its higher creative and intuitive frequencies. 7 minutes is the threshold at which something measurable begins to change in the way the brain is processing information. It is not an arbitrary number. It is not a spiritual superstition. It is a duration that researchers who have spent decades studying the relationship between sound, silence, and brain function have identified as the point at which the brain begins to move from reactive patterns into receptive ones. 7 minutes is enough to begin the shift. It is enough to open the channel. It is enough to bring a chosen one from the noise of ordinary life into the frequency where they can hear what heaven has been trying to say. During these 7 minutes, you may want to use a sound environment, something without words, something gentle and consistent, something that supports the brain in making the shift rather than keeping it engaged in content. Some people use soft music, some people use nature sounds, and some people increasingly are using something far more precise, a tool that was designed specifically for this kind of shift, a tool that we are going to talk about in detail very shortly because it connects directly to this practice and to everything that has been said about chosen ones and their specific neurological makeup. But for right now, what matters is this: 7 minutes. Not when you feel like it. Every day. Not when the conditions are perfect. Every day. On the hard days and the easy ones. On the days when you wake up with faith, and on the days when you wake up with nothing but the practice itself to hold on to. The consistency is the point. The chosen ones who step into their next season are not the ones who had the biggest revelation. They are the ones who showed up for the small practice on the ordinary days, over and over, until the small practice opened into something that changed everything. Here is the full protocol in its simplest form. Step 1. Remember one thing that did not happen, and let it be evidence of protection. Step 2. Speak your declaration of appointed time out loud, clearly, as if you mean it. Step 3. 7 minutes of intentional stillness, available and open. That is the entire practice. That is the return practice. It takes approximately 10 minutes in total, and it can be done anywhere, at any time. It requires no special equipment, no background knowledge, no particular level of spiritual experience or maturity. It only requires that you show up for it. And I want to say this directly to you. The chosen ones who are the most faithful to small practices in a season of waiting are the ones who arrive at the moment of breakthrough already formed, already ready, already carrying the internal architecture that the next season requires. You do not build that architecture in a single dramatic moment. You build it in 10 minutes of quiet faithfulness, repeated day after day, while the world around you sees nothing changing and you feel nothing shifting, until the day when everything shifts at once and you realize that you were being built the entire time. The practice is the preparation, and the preparation is almost complete. Something needs to be said here that most people in this kind of conversation are not willing to say, because it crosses a line between the spiritual and the scientific, and a lot of people on both sides of that line are uncomfortable with what lives in the middle. But you are not most people. You are a chosen one. And chosen ones are people who can hold complexity. People who can stand in the place where ancient truth and modern discovery meet and recognize that they are not opposites. They are the same river running in two different languages. So here is what needs to be said. The chosen ones carry a specific frequency, not as a metaphor, not as a spiritual abstraction, as a measurable, documentable, neurological reality. The people throughout history who have been described as visionaries, as prophets, as creators, as those who seem to operate from a deeper place of knowing than to them. Those people shared something in common that modern neuroscience has now begun to map and measure and understand. They carried a brain frequency that most adults have lost access to. Researchers call it gamma, and the story of how that frequency was discovered and what was done with that discovery is something you need to hear right now. For more than 30 years, a neuroscientist named Dr. James Rivers dedicated his career to a single question. Not a vague or general question, but a precise and personal one. Why do some people seem to operate from a fundamentally different level of cognitive and creative capacity than others? Not because of education, not because of privilege or opportunity or IQ scores, but something deeper, something that seemed to be present in some people almost like a birthright and absent in others despite every external advantage. Dr. Rivers was trained at MIT, one of the most rigorous scientific institutions in the world. And his research brought him into collaboration with some of the most advanced programs in existence, including work affiliated with NASA, where questions about human cognitive performance are not abstract, but urgent and practical. Over the course of 3 decades and thousands of hours of documented research, Dr. Rivers identified something that changed everything he thought he knew about human potential. He found that the brains of highly creative, highly intuitive, highly effective people shared a common characteristic. They were able to access and sustain specific brainwave frequencies that most adults had lost the ability to reach. And the two frequencies at the center of his findings were theta and gamma. Let me explain what these are in plain language, because you deserve to understand the science behind what you have been experiencing, not just the feeling of it. Your brain produces electrical activity in patterns called brain waves. Different states of mind produce different frequencies. When you are in ordinary waking consciousness, busy, reactive, managing the demands of the day, your brain is predominantly operating in beta waves. Beta is functional. Beta gets things done. But beta is also the frequency of stress, of overthinking, of the kind of mental noise that makes it hard to hear anything deeper than the surface of your own thoughts. Most adults spend the majority of their waking hours in beta. And here is what Dr. Rivers discovered. The longer a person spends locked in beta, the less access they have to the frequencies where their deepest intelligence lives. Theta waves, which operate in the range of 4 to 8 cycles per second, are the frequency of deep creativity, of intuition, of the kind of learning that bypasses the critical mind and goes straight into long-term memory. Children spend enormous amounts of time in theta. It is one of the primary reasons. Children learn so quickly, absorb so much, and access imagination so freely. But as we grow into adulthood and the demands of survival and performance close in around us, theta becomes harder and harder to reach. Most adults touch theta only in the drowsy moments just before sleep and just after waking, that liminal space where the mind is loose and ideas arrive unbidden. But those moments are brief and they are not sustained. And a chosen one who cannot sustain theta is a chosen one who is operating at a fraction of their actual capacity. Gamma waves are something different again. Gamma operates at the highest frequencies the brain produces, above 40 cycles per second. It is associated with what researchers describe as moments of peak cognitive integration. The moments when disparate pieces of information suddenly connect into a unified insight. What people commonly call the eureka moment, the flash of clarity, the sudden knowing that arrives fully formed from somewhere beyond ordinary reasoning. Gamma is the frequency of the mystic and the genius. It is the frequency of the person in the room who sees what everyone else cannot see yet. It is, to put it in the language of this message, the frequency of the chosen one operating at full capacity. And here is the discovery that Dr. Rivers made that connects all of this to you and to your life right now. The brain can be guided into these frequencies, not forced, not medicated, not achieved through years of intensive meditation practice, though that is one path, guided through a principle called brainwave entrainment, which is the brain's natural tendency to synchronize its own electrical activity with rhythmic external stimuli. In other words, when the brain hears a specific, carefully calibrated sound frequency, it naturally begins to match it. Like a tuning fork that causes another tuning fork in the same room to vibrate at the same pitch without being struck, the brain responds to precise auditory input by shifting its own frequency to align with what it is hearing. Dr. Rivers spent years refining the exact combination of sound frequencies, specifically binaural beats and isochronic tones, that could guide the brain reliably into theta and gamma states. And what he found, through thousands of hours of testing and refinement, was that the optimal duration for this kind of guided entrainment was 7 minutes. Not 20, not an hour. 7 minutes was the threshold at which the brain made the shift from beta into the deeper frequencies, and 7 minutes was also the duration at which the shift could be sustained without tipping into sleep or causing the kind of fatigue that longer sessions sometimes produced. 7 minutes was the number, the same number from the practice protocol in the previous part of this message. That was not an accident. The result of this work is a 7-minute audio track called The Genius Wave. And I want to tell you about 2 people who used it, because their stories are not testimonials in the ordinary marketing sense. They are mirrors. They are reflections of where you may currently be standing, and they are evidence of where you are capable of going. The first person was a woman in her mid-40s who had spent years feeling like she was almost there, almost breaking through in her career, almost reaching the level of clarity and confidence she could feel waiting just beyond where she currently was. She described herself as someone who had read every book, tried every system, and still felt like she was operating with a ceiling she could not identify or remove. She began using the Genius Wave daily, 7 minutes every morning before the rest of her household was awake. Within 3 weeks, she described something she called a quiet revolution. Not a dramatic overnight transformation, but a steady, deepening clarity. Her decision-making became faster and more confident. Her creativity, which had felt blocked for years, began to flow again. She said the best way she could describe it was that the noise between her and her own knowing had become quieter, and she could finally hear herself think. The second person was a man in his late 30s who had been carrying a sense of spiritual disconnection for years. He was faithful in his practice, consistent in showing up, but described the experience as standing outside a room where something was happening that he could not quite access. After 6 weeks of daily use of the Genius Wave, he sent a message that said simply, "I am back in the room." The disconnection was gone. The frequency had shifted, and with it, his sense of direction, purpose, and peace had returned in ways he had not experienced since he was much younger. Now, I know that some of you are thinking something right now. You are thinking that $39 is not nothing. And I want to acknowledge that feeling directly because it is valid and because this message has no interest in dismissing the reality of where people are financially. $39 is a real amount of money for a lot of people. It represents something. And the question is not whether it is a lot or a little in absolute terms. The question is what you are comparing it to. Compare it to another year of operating below your actual frequency. Compare it to another 12 months of feeling the ceiling but not being able to find the door. Compare it to the cost, in time and energy and opportunity, of continuing to function in beta when you were made for gamma. When you put it in those terms, $39 is not an obstacle. It is an opening. Regular price of the Genius Wave is $49, but through the link in the pinned comment below, you can access it today for just $39. That is the full program, the complete 7-minute audio track developed from more than 30 years of neuroscientific research, available to you right now at a price that was specifically set to make it accessible to the people who need it most. And it comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. 90 days. That is not a standard return window. That is a statement of confidence. That is Dr. Rivers and his team saying, "We are so certain of what this will do for you that we are giving you 3 full months to experience it. And if at the end of those 3 months you do not feel that it has changed something meaningful for you, you get every dollar back. No questions, no difficulty, no hoops to jump through. One important thing before you look for it. There are imitation versions of this product appearing in various places online, and I want to protect you from them. The only version of the Genius Wave that contains the authentic, research-calibrated frequency work that Dr. Rivers developed is available through the single link in the pinned comment below. Do not purchase from any other source. Do not trust any other link. The pinned comment is the only verified access point, and it is the only one that comes with the full guarantee and the authentic audio. And finally, this offer is not permanent. Pricing at $39 is available for a limited time and to a limited number of people. This message is reaching chosen ones across the world right now, and every one of them who recognizes themselves in this season and takes the step toward their frequency is one fewer spot at this price. If you have been feeling the pull of this throughout this message, if something inside you has been saying yes, that is not enthusiasm talking, that is discernment. That is your spirit recognizing something your mind has not fully processed yet. Trust it. The link is below. The door is open. This is the appointed time. Before we move forward, something needs to be said that is rarely said in messages like this one. Something that the language of faith and positivity and breakthrough sometimes skips over in its rush to get to the good part. And I am not willing to skip over it with you, because you have earned the right to have it acknowledged, and because pretending it is not there does not make it lighter. It only makes it lonelier. The waiting has taken things from you, not metaphorical things, not abstract, spiritual costs that can be easily reframed into blessings, real things, tangible, specific, irreplaceable things that were part of the life you were building, or the life you believed you were moving toward, and that are simply gone now. Gone in the way that time that has passed is gone. Gone in the way that a season that ended without producing what it promised is gone. And before any word is spoken about what is coming, before any declaration is made about the appointed time and the door that is opening and the frequency that is rising, I want to sit with you in the acknowledgement of what was taken. Because that is not a detour from the message. That is the center of it. There are relationships that could have been built during these years of waiting that were not built. Connections that required a version of you with more energy, more openness, more availability than the waiting left you with. Friendships that drifted because you did not have the emotional surplus to maintain them, while you were also maintaining yourself through a season that demanded everything you had. A romantic relationship, perhaps, that might have gone further and deeper if the weight of the waiting had not made you guarded in ways you did not choose and could not always control. Connections that required a lightness you were not able to carry because you were already carrying something else. Those relationships, the ones that did not happen, the ones that ended, the ones that never quite reached. What they might have been, they represent a real cost, and that cost deserves to be named. There is also the career, the version of your professional life that could have existed if the waiting had not redirected your energy and your attention and your resources in ways that felt necessary at the time, but that also, in the cold, honest light of inventory, slowed certain things down. The opportunities you did not pursue because you were in a season that required internal work rather than external advancement. The positions you could have been in by now. The projects you could have completed. The version of your resume, your portfolio, your reputation in your field that could have been further along. You are not where you could have been professionally. That is a real thing, and it came at a real cost. There is the freedom to tell your big dreams out loud. The freedom that gets quietly surrendered in a long season of waiting. Because at some point, the gap between the dream and the current reality becomes wide enough that saying the dream out loud starts to feel like an act of foolishness rather than faith. So you stop saying it, not because you stopped believing it, but because you got tired of the look on people's faces. The slight shift in their expression when you described what you were believing for. The polite encouragement, that was really just a form of management. The quiet lowering of expectations that people do when they love you but cannot see what you see. So, you learned to keep the dream inside. You learned to carry it privately, without the oxygen of being spoken, without the warmth of being witnessed. And something about that silent carrying has cost you. The dream is still there, but the joy of it, the freedom to speak it with full and open and undefended excitement, that has been worn down by years of keeping it close and quiet. And perhaps the deepest cost of all is the faith you had in yourself. Not your faith in God, though that has been tested too, but your faith in your own perception. Your faith in the knowing that was placed inside you. Your faith in the voice that said, "This is who you are, and this is what you are for." Because when that knowing does not produce visible evidence for long enough, when the promise does not materialize on any timeline that makes sense, when you have done everything right and still the thing has not come, something in you begins to quietly wonder whether the knowing was ever real, whether you imagined it, whether the sense of calling and purpose and divine selection was a story you told yourself to make ordinary circumstances feel more meaningful than they were. And that wondering, that small and persistent question mark that has lived at the edge of your faith for longer than you want to admit, that is perhaps the most expensive thing the waiting has taken. The unguarded certainty you used to carry about who you are. I am not going to reframe any of that right now. I am not going to tell you immediately that the relationships were protection, or that the career delay was redirection, or that the lost self-confidence was just humility being formed. All of those things may be true. But right now, before any of that, I want to simply sit with you in the acknowledgement that the years cost something, that you are not making it up, that the inventory of what is missing is real, and it matters, and it deserves to be witnessed before it is reframed. You are allowed to grieve this. You are allowed to feel the weight of it without immediately converting it into a lesson. You are allowed to say, "This was hard, and it took things from me, and I wish it had been different, and I do not yet fully understand why it had to be this way." You are allowed to hold that without having an answer ready. Now I want to tell you about a man named Joseph. You probably know the broad outline of his story, but I want to tell you the part that does not get preached often, the part that happens before the promotion, before the interpretation of dreams, before the palace and the provision, and the moment when everything that was taken is returned and multiplied. I want to tell you about the in-between. Joseph was a young man who carried a knowing. He had dreams, literal dreams, that told him something about who he was and what he was for. And that knowing, that divine sense of identity and calling, was the thing that cost him everything first. His brothers saw it in him and hated it. Not because they were purely evil men, but because there is something about a chosen one's knowing that disturbs the people who do not carry the same certainty. It unsettles them. It makes them want to remove it from their vicinity. And so they did. They took him and threw him into a pit, and they sold him, and they sent a lie back to their father, and they went on with their lives. And Joseph went into Egypt as a slave. He was faithful in slavery. He rose within his situation, and then he was falsely accused and thrown into prison. He was faithful in prison. He interpreted dreams for fellow prisoners. He asked only to be remembered, and he was forgotten for years. The scripture does not skip over those years. It notes them. It marks them. 2 full years of sitting in a prison after being promised that someone would speak for him, and the someone forgot. And the years passed, and Joseph sat in a cell with a knowing that had cost him his family, his freedom, his reputation, and his youth. That is the part that does not fit neatly into a motivational message. That is the part that does not resolve quickly. Joseph in the pit, Joseph in the prison, Joseph forgotten by the very person he helped, Joseph with a calling that was real and a promise that was true and a present reality that looked nothing like either one. I bring him up not to tell you that the ending was beautiful, though it was. I bring him up because the years in the prison were real. The cost of the calling was real. The loneliness of carrying a knowing that no one around you can validate and no circumstance around you can confirm is one of the oldest and most specific experiences of a chosen one. And if Joseph felt it, and the evidence suggests he did, then you are not weak for feeling it. You are not faithless for feeling it. You are not behind or broken or disqualified for the weight of what these years have cost you. You are Joseph in the prison, which means you are also Joseph in the moment, just before the door opens. There is a detail in the story that I want you to carry with you. The 2 years that passed after Joseph interpreted the cupbearer's dream, the 2 years when he was forgotten, are described in the original language as simply passing. No drama, no recorded protest from Joseph, no detailed account of his suffering in that time. Just the passing of days that were ordinary on the outside, and almost certainly anything but ordinary on the inside. Days that cost something. Days that took something. Days that Joseph did not know were the final days of the prison season, because that is how the final days of a waiting season almost always feel. Not like a crescendo, like more of the same, until the morning they were not. Until the morning a messenger came to the door of the prison, and the season that had taken so much from Joseph became the corridor through which everything he was ever promised began to arrive. You are in those final days. You do not know they are the final days. But something in you, the same, something that brought you to this message today, knows that the ordinary feeling of more of the same is not the whole story right now. Something is shifting in a place you cannot see yet. The cost was real, the taking was real, and the return is also real. Hold that. Just hold that for right now. There is a language problem that most people in a season of waiting are never told about. And the problem is this. The language you have been using to describe your situation is borrowed from the wrong tradition. You have been using the language of clock time to describe an experience that does not belong to clock time. You have been measuring your journey in months and years and deadlines and ages, and all the markers that the ordinary world uses to determine whether something is on schedule or behind. And when you measure a divine journey with a human clock, you will always come to the wrong conclusion, because the two systems are not compatible. They do not share the same definition of on time. They do not share the same understanding of what a delay means, or what a setback costs, or what it looks like when something is right on schedule. The ancient Greeks understood this distinction so clearly that they had 2 completely separate words for 2 completely separate experiences of time. The first word was chronos. Chronos is the time you already know. It is the time that moves in a straight line from past to present to future. It is the time that the clock measures and the calendar tracks and the birthday marks. It is the time that says you are a certain age and you have been waiting a certain number of years, and certain things should have happened by now according to a reasonable projection of where things were heading. Chronos is sequential. Chronos is mathematical. Chronos keeps a ledger, and when you look at your ledger in Chronos terms, it may very well appear that you are behind. But the second word was kairos. And kairos is something entirely different. Kairos does not move in a line. Kairos is not measured in units. Kairos is the word the ancient Greeks used for the appointed moment. The moment of unique and decisive opportunity, the moment when the conditions are exactly right for something to happen that could not have happened at any other point on the timeline. Kairos is the crack in the wall through which light enters. Kairos is the convergence point where everything that has been moving separately suddenly arrives at the same place at the same time. Kairos cannot be scheduled. It cannot be manufactured. It cannot be forced into being through effort or strategy or willpower. It can only be recognized when it arrives. And it arrives according to its own logic, which is not the logic of the clock. Here is what this means for you, right now. When you look at your life through chronos and you feel behind, you are not wrong that time has passed. You are not wrong that years have moved through you and left their marks. But you are measuring the wrong thing. The question is not how much chronos has elapsed. The question is whether Kairos has arrived. And Kairos does not care how much chronos has passed. Kairos arrives when the fullness of preparation meets the fullness of opportunity, and not one moment before. The waiting you have been experiencing is not chronos punishing you. It is the space between the last moment of preparation and the first moment of Kairos. And you are standing right now at the edge of that space. This is not a reward for effort. This is not heaven finally grading your faithfulness and deciding you have scored high enough to receive what you asked for. Kairos does not work that way. Kairos is not a merit system. It is a positioning system. It is the moment when the person who was being prepared arrives at the place that was being prepared for them, and the two things meet. And what looked for so long like delay reveals itself to have been the most precise and intentional timing imaginable. You are not finally being rewarded. You are finally being positioned at the exact coordinates where Kairos is about to land. And there is something else, something from the Hebrew tradition that adds another layer to what Kairos already says. There is a word in the Hebrew scriptures, kava, that is most often translated in English as the word wait, as in, those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. You have probably heard that verse. You have probably held on to it in the difficult moments of this season. But what most English translations lose is the full meaning of the original word. Because kava does not mean to sit still and endure. Kava carries the image of braiding, of taking separate strands and weaving them together under tension. The word describes the process by which a rope is made, where individual threads that are too thin and too fragile on their own are twisted together under pressure until they form something with the tensile strength that none of the individual strands could have achieved alone. When the scripture says those who kava upon the Lord, it is not describing passive endurance. It is describing an active, pressured, intentional process of being woven together. Every strand of your experience in this waiting season, every difficulty, every loss, every year that felt like it was taking more than it was giving, every morning you got up when you did not want to get up, every prayer you prayed when the silence was the only response, every act of quiet faithfulness when no one was watching and nothing was changing. Every single one of those strands has been part of the braiding. The pressure of the waiting has not been breaking you. It has been weaving you into something with a strength that your pre-waiting self did not have and could not have carried. You are not delayed. You are being assembled. And when the assembly is complete, when the last strand is braided into place, when the rope that has been forming in the hidden season is finally revealed, what is seen is not a person who barely survived a long wait. What is seen is a chosen one who is carrying a strength that only comes from having been through exactly what you have been through, for exactly as long as you have been through it, without giving up. That strength is the inheritance of the kava season. and it cannot be purchased or borrowed or given. It can only be built the way you have been building it, quietly, invisibly, under pressure, day after day, in the ordinary faithfulness of a chosen one who kept showing up, even when nothing was showing up for them. Now I want to bring you to the concept that sits at the very heart of this moment, the concept that was carried in the ancient understanding of sacred promise, and that speaks most directly to where you are standing right now. It is the concept of the appointed time. In the original language of the Hebrew prophets, there is an understanding that certain things in the divine economy do not operate on human schedules. They operate on ordained schedules, schedules that were set before the events themselves existed, schedules that do not move because circumstances change, or because human beings grow impatient, or because the opposition against the promise becomes strong enough that fulfillment seems impossible. The appointed time is fixed in a way that human time is not. It does not shift. It does not negotiate. It does not respond to pressure from either direction. It simply arrives. At the moment it was always going to arrive. In the form it was always going to take. For the person it was always going to find. The prophet Habakkuk, writing to people who had been waiting so long for a promise that they had begun to publicly question whether the promise was real, was given a specific instruction about the appointed time. He was told to write the vision and make it plain. And then he was told something that has carried chosen ones through centuries of waiting. The vision, the promise, the thing that has been ordained will speak and it will not lie. Though it tarry, though it seems delayed beyond any reasonable expectation, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not be late. That word tarry in the original language carries the meaning of something that appears to have passed its expected time. Not something that is early or on schedule, but something that looks, from a chronos perspective, like it has missed its moment. And yet the instruction is not to adjust the expectation, or reduce the dream, or accept a smaller version of what was promised. The instruction is to wait, because the appointed time is not subject to the appearance of lateness. What God has ordained, delay cannot cancel. What has been set, appointed time cannot be moved by opposition, by circumstance, by the accumulation of years, or by the honest and human feeling that it has simply taken too long. The appointed time does not ask for your understanding. It does not require your comprehension of the mechanism by which it operates. It only requires that you remain in position long enough to be found by it when it arrives. And here is the thing about where you currently are. You have remained in position through everything that has been named in this message, through the cost and the grief and the loneliness and the years and the fading of certainty. You have remained. You are still here. You are still in this message. You are still, against every reasonable argument that could have been made for giving up, standing at the threshold. That is not stubbornness. That is not the absence of better options. That is something older than either of those things. That is the mark of someone who was chosen for a promise that required a long preparation, who was given the capacity to endure that preparation, and who has arrived through the full duration of the Kava season at the edge of their Kairos moment. The appointed time does not miss its mark. It finds the one it was set for, and it was set for you. And it is close enough right now that if you were to reach out into the space just beyond where you can currently see, you would feel the warmth of it on your open hand. What God has ordained, delay cannot cancel. You have not been waiting for the appointed time. The appointed time has been moving toward you, and it has almost arrived. Something is shifting right now. Not in a distant future that you have to strain toward or a distant promise that still requires years of patience before it becomes visible. Something is shifting right now, in this season, in these days, in the specific and unrepeatable moment that you are currently living inside of. And the shift is not subtle in the way that most shifts in a chosen one's life have been subtle up until now. This one is different. This one has a weight to it, a momentum, a sense of something that has been building in a hidden place for a very long time, finally reaching the surface. You have been feeling it. You may not have had language for it until now, but it has been there underneath the ordinary texture of your days, a low and steady hum that tells you something is coming that is unlike anything that has come before. I feel something inside coming. That is the phrase that comes closest to describing what a chosen one experiences in the days just before their season turns. Not I see something, not I know something, but I feel something, deep in the body, deep in the spirit. A knowing that precedes understanding, an awareness that arrives before the evidence, a certainty that cannot be fully explained, but also cannot be honestly denied. If you have been feeling that, you are not imagining it. You are not manufacturing hope out of desperation. You are receiving the earliest signal of a frequency that is about to become unmistakable. Let me be specific about what is about to change, because vague promises are not what you need right now. You have had enough vague encouragement. You need someone to describe what the shift actually looks like in 3 concrete, real areas of your life, so that when it begins, you recognize it immediately and you do not mistake it for something ordinary or dismiss it as coincidence. The first area is your relationships. And the change here is going to feel disorienting before it feels like a blessing. So I want to prepare you for that now. In the coming season, you are going to notice that certain people begin to create distance from you. Not dramatically, not with conflict or confrontation in most cases. Simply a natural and gradual pulling away, a lessening of contact, a sense that the connection that once felt solid has quietly become more effortful to maintain. Some of these people will be ones you have known for a long time. Some of them will be people you care about. And the natural response is to read this as loss, to interpret the distancing as rejection, to wonder what you did wrong or what changed. But I need you to hear this clearly. What is happening is not loss. What is happening is a clearing, a specific, intentional, divinely ordered clearing of the relational space around you to make room for the people who belong to your next season. The people who are coming for you in your next season are not the same as the people who were right for your last season. The connections that are being prepared for you are calibrated to the frequency of the person you are becoming, not the person you have been. And those new people, the ones who will walk in at exactly the right moment and feel immediately like recognition rather than introduction, cannot enter a space that is already crowded with connections that belong to a season that has ended. The clearing is the preparation for the filling. Do not hold on too tightly to what is releasing. And do not be afraid of the temporary emptiness it leaves behind, because that emptiness is not abandonment. That is a room being made ready for guests who are already on their way. The second area is your purpose. And this is the one that chosen ones often find the most difficult to trust, because it requires surrendering the need to have the entire map before taking the first step. The question that has been following you for so long, the one that sounds like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Or what is my real purpose? Or how do I take what I feel called to and make it into something real and sustainable? That question is about to begin answering itself. Not in a comprehensive revelation, not in a single blinding moment of clarity that hands you a 5-year plan and a guaranteed outcome, but in one clear, small, specific step That is the way purpose unfolds for a chosen one in the transition between seasons. It does not arrive as a complete picture. It arrives as the next step illuminated with enough light to take it. And the chosen one who has been trained by the waiting season, who has learned to operate in appointed time rather than demanding a chronos schedule, is exactly the kind of person who can receive that one step and trust it enough to move. The question will answer itself in a way that is small enough to be practical and clear enough to be unmistakable. When it comes, do not wait for the rest of the answer before you move. Take the step that is lit. The next one will become visible when you do. The third area is resources and opportunities. And this is where the language of chosen ones in transition is most often misunderstood. So I want to be precise. What is coming is not a windfall in the lottery sense. It is not sudden and arbitrary abundance dropped from the sky. What is coming is a reordering, a fundamental reordering of how resources and opportunities move toward you. For much of the waiting season, you have been in a position of striving, of pushing toward things, of working harder than the return seemed to justify, of feeling like you were always a step behind where the opportunity was, always chasing rather than receiving, always giving more than was coming back. That dynamic is about to change. Not because you are going to stop working or stop putting in effort, but because the energy of that effort is going to shift. The chosen one who arrives at their Kairos moment stops fighting for what belongs to them and starts walking into it. The fighting was for the preparation season. The receiving is for the new season, and receiving is not passive. It is an active posture of recognizing what is yours and accepting it without the old apology, without the old smallness, without the old habit of minimizing what you were given, because somewhere inside you were not sure you deserved the full portion. You deserve the full portion. It was set aside for you before you were born. And in this coming seasons, the fight for it is over. Now, there is something you must not do during this period of transition, and I want to say it plainly because the temptation is going to be very real. Do not downsize the expectation to match the current evidence. This is the most common and most costly mistake that chosen ones make in the days just before their season turns. The evidence of the new season has not fully arrived yet. The relationships have not yet fully formed. The purpose has not yet fully clarified. The resources have not yet fully shifted. And in that gap, in that space between what you feel coming and what you can currently see, the old voice of doubt will make its strongest argument. It will point to the absence of visible evidence and suggest that you are being naive. It will suggest that you have been believing for a long time, and perhaps it is wiser to lower the expectation to something more reasonable. It will suggest that the hope you are feeling right now is just emotion, just the response to a message that was well crafted, not a genuine signal from something real. Do not listen to that voice. The absence of visible evidence in the days before a Kairos moment is not a sign that the Kairos moment is not coming. It is a characteristic of how Kairos operates. Kairos does not send advance publicity. It does not give you a preview that allows you to prepare emotionally before it arrives. It arrives. And when it arrives fully. The only preparation that works for a Kairos moment is the one you have already been doing. The faithfulness of the waiting season, the building of the internal architecture, the practice and the declaration and the 7 minutes of intentional stillness that align your frequency with the frequency of what is coming. What you need to do right now in this specific period of transition is simple but not easy. You need to hold the expectation while releasing the timeline. You need to carry the full size of the promise while surrendering your grip on when it arrives. You need to be the chosen one who is ready but not desperate, available but not grasping, faithful but not controlling. That is the posture of the Kairos threshold, and you are already standing there. I also want to say this about the emotion of this period. What you are feeling right now is not delusion. The hope that is rising in you as this message unfolds is not a manufactured feeling that will fade when the video ends. It is a recognition. It is the sensation of a chosen one whose spirit is beginning to align with the frequency of what is already in motion on their behalf. That feeling is information. It is a signal. It is heaven's way of saying, you are in the right place. You are in the right time. You are oriented correctly. Stay exactly here and do not retreat back into the smaller story that the waiting season has been telling you about yourself. Stay here. Stay open. Stay at the threshold of everything that is coming. If you can feel what this message is describing, if something in your body or your spirit is responding to these words with a recognition that goes deeper than intellectual agreement, if you know that this is speaking directly to where you are right now, I want you to type the words I receive in the comments below. Not as a performance, not as a ritual, but as a declaration to your own spirit and to the season that is arriving. When you say I receive, you are telling the universe that you are not going to step back from the threshold. You are not going to retreat into doubt or smallness or the comfortable familiarity of the waiting season. You are standing at the door and you are saying, I am here, I am ready, and I receive everything that has been prepared for me. Type it now, I receive, and mean it. You are still here. That matters more than you know. In a world that rewards only the loud and the fast and the immediately successful, the fact that you are still here, still listening, still willing to receive what this message is offering, is itself a form of courage that most people will never fully understand. The ones who left early, the ones who scrolled past, the ones who heard the first few minutes and decided it was not for them, they were not wrong to go. This message was not for them, but you stayed, and the staying is significant. The staying is, in fact, the very thing that has defined your entire journey up until this moment. You are a person who stays, who keeps showing up, who does not walk away from the thing that was placed inside them, even when walking away would have been the easier and more understandable choice. That quality has a name, and I want to give it to you. Now, not as a flattering label, but as a true description of who you have become through the full weight of everything this season has asked of you. You are a hope restorer. Not in the sentimental sense that phrase might first suggest, where it simply means someone who is optimistic or encouraging by personality. In the truest and most profound sense of what those two words mean when they are placed together as an identity rather than a description. A hope restorer is someone who has personally walked through the territory where hope goes to die, who has sat in the darkness long enough to know every corner of it, who has felt the specific weight of a promise that seemed to have expired, and who has come through that territory not by avoiding the darkness, but by moving through it without surrendering to it. That is not a personality trait. That is not something you were born with in the comfortable sense. That is something that was forged in you through every year of the waiting season, through every morning you got up when you did not want to get up, through every prayer you prayed into what felt like silence, through every moment you chose to keep believing when the believing cost you something real. A hope restorer does not restore hope by pretending the darkness was not dark. That is the counterfeit version of what you carry. The counterfeit version offers easy encouragement, quick reassurance, the kind of optimism that has never actually sat in the pit and therefore cannot speak to the person who is still there. What you carry is something different. What you carry is the authority of someone who has been in the pit and come out of it, still intact, still believing, still carrying the original knowing that was placed inside them before any of the difficulty began. That kind of hope is not fragile. That kind of hope does not shatter when circumstances press against it, because it was already tested in circumstances that were designed to shatter it, and it survived. When you speak hope into another person's situation, you are not offering them a wish. You are offering them evidence. You are offering them the living proof that the darkness does not win, that the promise does not expire, that the appointed time does arrive, because you are standing in front of them as the demonstration of exactly that truth. This is why you were made to carry what you carry. Not for yourself alone, for the person who is going to look at your story and find the courage to keep going, for the person who is going to hear what you eventually say about this season and recognize themselves in it and choose, because of your choosing, not to give up. You are a hope restorer, and the world that is waiting for you in your next season needs exactly what you have been built to carry. Now, I want to guide you through something, a visualization exercise that I want you to stay with fully, not as a performance, but as a genuine act of interior seeing. Close your eyes if you are able to do so safely. If you cannot, soften your gaze and let the words do the work of the image. Picture yourself standing at a threshold, not a metaphorical threshold in a vague and general sense, but a specific and physical one. A doorway, stone around the edges, worn smooth by the hands of people who have stood here before you. The floor beneath your feet is solid. You can feel the weight of your own body on it. Behind you is everything you have walked through to get here, not as a blur or a summary, but as a real landscape that you can turn and see if you choose to. The years of waiting are there. The relationships that cost you are there. The dreams you carried quietly when you could not carry them openly are there. The mornings that were harder than anyone knew are there. The prayers that felt like they went nowhere are there. All of it is there, behind you, real and witnessed and honored, not erased, not minimized, not reframed into something it was not. It was hard, it cost something, and it brought you here. Now turn forward. Do not look back again right now. Look forward, through the threshold, into what is on the other side. You cannot see it completely. The light on the other side is different from the light behind you, warmer and clearer, and carrying a quality that is difficult to name but immediately recognizable to something deep inside you. You cannot make out every detail of what is ahead, but you can feel it. You can feel the space of it, the openness of it, the sense that what is on the other side has been arranged for you, that the dimensions of it were built to fit the specific shape of who you are and what you carry. It is not a generic good future. It is yours. It has your name on it in the most literal sense that a future can carry a person's name. Now look down at your feet. Notice that you are already standing at the threshold. Not approaching it, not still in the middle of the long walk toward it. Already at it. The threshold is beneath your feet right now. The waiting season brought you here. Every step of the long road, every year of the positioning, every strand of the braiding, all of it has delivered you to this exact point. You did not almost make it to the threshold. You are already standing on it. The step that remains is not a long journey. It is a single step forward. One step from where you are standing now into what has already been prepared. You do not have to leap. You do not have to run. You do not have to have everything figured out or every question answered or every fear resolved before you move. You only have to take one step forward from where you are already standing, and you are already standing at the threshold. Hold that image. Hold yourself in that place for a moment. Feel the solidity of the ground beneath you. Feel the warmth of the light ahead. Feel the truth of what it means that you are already here, already at the edge of everything that is coming, already the person who survived the full length of the preparation season and arrived at the appointed moment intact. You made it to the threshold. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. And now, before this section closes, I want to speak a blessing over you. Not a formal or ceremonial blessing, a personal one. The kind that one person speaks to another when they have sat with them long enough to know something true about who they are. May the clarity you have been praying for arrive in the form of one unmistakable step forward. May the relationships that are coming find you quickly and recognize you immediately. May the resources that belong to your next season begin to move toward you with a speed that surprises you. May the voice of doubt that has been loudest in the quietest hours of this season grow quieter with each passing day until it is no longer the first thing you hear in the morning. May you carry the full weight of what you are without apology and without smallness. May the hope restorer in you find its first opportunity to speak into someone else's darkness very soon. And may you know, in the deepest and most unshakable place inside yourself, that you were chosen before you were formed, that the assignment is real, that the promise has not expired, and that the threshold you are standing on right now is the beginning of everything you were always made for. You are seen, you are known, you are blessed, and you are already there. The blessing that was just spoken over you was not a closing. It was ascending. It was the kind of word that does not ask you to sit still and receive it indefinitely, but that releases you into motion, into the practical and specific and real actions of a chosen one, who has arrived at their threshold and is ready to take the step forward. Because here is the truth about thresholds. They are not places you live. They are places you pass through. And the passing through requires movement. It requires the chosen one to take what has been understood in the interior and begin to express it in the exterior, to take what has been received in the spirit and begin to walk it out in the body, in the daily decisions, in the practical choices, in the small and consistent actions that translate a kairos moment from a feeling into a life. So this is the part of the message where we get specific, where the language of promise meets the language of practice, where the poetic gives way to the practical, not because the poetic was not true, but because the truth of it needs somewhere to go now. You need to know what to do today, not in 6 months, not when conditions are more favorable or circumstances are more clear, or you feel more ready than you currently feel. Today, right now, in the specific and ordinary context of your actual life as it currently exists. There are 3 areas that are about to transform in your life. We touched on them briefly in an earlier part of this message. But now I want to go deeper into each one, because you deserve more than a headline. You deserve the full picture of what the transformation looks like from the inside, what it asks of you in practical terms, and what you can begin doing today to position yourself to receive it fully, rather than partially. The first area is relationships, and the practical action that is required of you here is both the simplest and the most emotionally demanding of the 3. It is this: you need to stop holding on to connections that have already released you. There are people in your life right now, perhaps several of them, perhaps just one significant one, who have already energetically moved on from the version of the relationship you shared. The connection is still technically present. The contact still happens occasionally. The history is still real and still meaningful. But the living, breathing, growing quality of it has quieted in a way that both of you can feel, even if neither of you has said it directly. And the response that the waiting season trained you into is to hold on, to reach out a little more, to invest a little more effort into maintaining something that is requiring increasing amounts of energy to sustain because it has already done what it was designed to do in your life. The waiting season taught you to hold on because letting go felt like loss, and you had already experienced enough loss. But the new season is asking something different of you. The new season is asking you to open your hands, to release with love and without bitterness what is naturally completing its cycle in your life, to trust that the clearing of relational space is not impoverishment but preparation. And here is the practical action. Today or this week, identify one connection that you have been working harder than is natural to maintain. Not a connection that simply requires effort in the normal way that all meaningful relationships do, but one that feels like you are the only one carrying it. And practice releasing your grip on it, not dramatically, not with a conversation or a confrontation unless that is genuinely needed. Simply internally, simply in the quiet of your own spirit, releasing the anxiety about whether it continues and trusting that what is meant to remain will remain without you, white-knuckling it into place. At the same time, begin paying attention to new connections that arrive with unusual ease. The person you meet who feels immediately familiar. The conversation that goes deeper faster than conversations normally do. The introduction that seems too well-timed to be coincidental. These are the relational arrivals of the new season, and the chosen one who has released their grip on the old connections has the open hands required to receive the new ones. Pay attention. The new people are already beginning to appear. They may have already appeared, and you dismissed the connection as coincidental because you were not yet looking for it. The second area is purpose. And the practical action here is one that requires a specific kind of courage that is different from the courage of endurance that the waiting season asked of you. The waiting season asked you to be brave enough to stay. The new season is asking you to be brave enough to move, to take the one clear small step that the purpose is beginning to show you, even before the full picture is visible. Even before you can see how the step connects to the larger destination. Even before you have the confirmation of external validation that what you are doing is the right thing. Here is what that step might look like in practical terms. It might be a conversation you have been postponing because you were not sure the timing was right. The timing is right. Have the conversation. It might be a creative project you have been holding in the planning stage because you were waiting until you had more time or more resources or more confidence. You have enough of all three to begin. Begin. It might be an application you have been drafting in your head, but not yet put on paper. Put it on paper today. It might be a service, a practice, a ministry, a business, a body of work that you have been describing to yourself in private for years without yet making it visible to anyone else. Make it visible to one person this week, not the whole world, one person. The step is always smaller than the fear around it suggests, and the chosen one who takes the small step in the direction of their purpose will find that the next step becomes visible the moment the first one is taken. The practical action for purpose is this. Write down, today, the one thing that keeps returning to you, no matter how many times you set it aside. The idea that will not leave. The vision that persists despite the absence of encouragement or infrastructure or obvious opportunity. Write it down in plain language, not as a grand mission statement, but as a simple description of what it is. Then identify the single smallest possible action you could take toward it in the next 24 hours. Not the action that would make it real, the action that would make it more real than it was yesterday. And take that action. That is the whole assignment for purpose right now. 1 sentence describing the thing. 1 small action toward it. Today. The third area is resources and opportunities. And this is the one where the practical action is perhaps the most counterintuitive, because it is not about doing more. It is about receiving better. The waiting season trained you to fight for what you needed, to push, to strive, to work harder than the return seemed to justify, to be grateful for whatever came, because the posture of someone in a long season of scarcity is to accept less than the full portion rather than risk receiving nothing. That posture served you in the season it was formed in, but it is no longer the right posture for where you are standing now. The practical action for resources and opportunities is to begin practicing what might be called full portion thinking. To begin, in small and daily ways, adjusting your interior posture from one of striving and scarcity to one of receiving and sufficiency. This does not mean denying the current reality of your finances or your circumstances. It means refusing to let the current reality set the ceiling on your expectation. It means beginning to speak about your future in the language of someone who is moving toward abundance rather than someone who is hoping to escape lack. It means when an opportunity presents itself, resisting the old reflex to immediately calculate all the reasons it might not work, and instead asking first, is this mine? And if the answer is yes, receiving it without the old apology. Practically, this looks like several small things done consistently. It looks like noticing when you minimize what you have been given and choosing instead to acknowledge it fully. It looks like paying attention to opportunities that arrive without the familiar feeling of having to fight for them, because those easy arrivals are often the new season's way of showing you what receiving looks like. It looks like updating your self-description in whatever context you inhabit, professional, social, personal, to reflect the person you are becoming rather than the person the waiting season defined you as. You are not the person who is still waiting for their breakthrough. You are the person who is walking into it right now. Speak accordingly. And there is one more practical action that encompasses all 3 areas, one that we have already spoken about in detail, but that deserves to be named again here in the context of everything that is coming. The 7-minute daily practice, the return practice, the 3 steps of remembering protection, declaring appointed time, and entering the stillness. This is not supplemental to the transformation of your relationships, your purpose, and your resources. It is the foundation of all 3. Because the chosen one who is operating at the right frequency, whose brain is no longer locked in the reactive noise of beta, but has access to the deeper creative and intuitive intelligence of theta and gamma, that chosen one navigates the relational clearing with grace rather than anxiety. That chosen one recognizes the small purposeful step when it appears and has the clarity to take it. That chosen one receives opportunities without the fog of scarcity thinking because their mind is operating from a place of openness rather than survival. This is why the genius wave matters in the context of everything that is coming for you. It is not a supplement to your spiritual practice. It is the neurological support for it. It is the tool that Dr. James Rivers spent more than 30 years developing, so that the chosen ones who are standing at exactly the threshold you are currently standing at would have something precise and reliable to use in the 7 minutes of daily stillness that the practice calls. The link is still in the pinned comment below. The price is still $39 for a limited time. The 90-day guarantee is still in place. And if something in you has been saying yes to it throughout this message, that yes is worth trusting. But whether or not the genius wave is part of your specific toolkit The practice itself is non-negotiable for this season. 7 minutes every day, no exceptions. The consistency is the point. The chosen one who shows up for 7 minutes of intentional stillness every single day, even the days when nothing feels like it is shifting, is the chosen one who arrives at their Kairos moment, already tuned to the frequency at which it operates, already resonating with what is coming, already positioned to recognize it and receive it, and walk into it without hesitation when it arrives. You know what to do now. You have always known. But now you have language for it, structure for it, a protocol that holds it, and the confirmation that what you have been feeling and sensing and quietly believing throughout this long season was never imagination. It was always instruction, and the instruction is now complete enough for you to move. The relationships are clearing. The purpose is clarifying. The resources are realigning. And you are the chosen one who is standing at the threshold with open hands and a tuned frequency and a spirit that has been prepared by everything you have been through for exactly this moment. Move, take the step. The door is already open. Part 10. There is something I want to say to you before this message ends, and I want to say it without any agenda attached to it, without any call to action wrapped around it, without any product or practice or protocol following immediately behind it. I just want to say it plainly, from one voice to one listener, because it is true and because you deserve to hear it stated simply and without decoration. Thank you for being here, not in the polite and automatic way that phrase sometimes gets used at the end of a video. The reflexive gratitude that does not really land anywhere specific. I mean it in the way that acknowledges what it actually cost you to show up for this, because you did not arrive here from a place of comfort and surplus. You arrived here from a place of weight, from a season that has been long and specific and personally costly in the ways that were named throughout this message. You arrived here from the middle of a waiting season that has taken real things from you and asked real things of you, and has not yet fully delivered the visible evidence of what it has been preparing you for. And despite all of that, you showed up. You stayed. You listened all the way through to this moment. And that is not a small thing. That is, in fact, the thing. The showing up is the whole thing. Not the eloquence of the prayer, or the perfection of the practice, or the theological precision of the belief. The showing up, the choosing, again and again, in season after season and morning after morning, to present yourself to the process, even when the process offers nothing immediately visible in return. That is what chosen ones do, and you have been doing it for longer than anyone around you may fully know or acknowledge. I want you to know that you are not alone in this. That may feel like a difficult thing to believe when the loneliness of this season has been as specific and as present as it has been. But I want you to hear it as a fact rather than a comfort. All across the world right now, in this exact moment, other chosen ones are walking into this exact same message. Someone in a different country, in a different language, in a different set of circumstances that look nothing like yours on the outside, but feel identical on the inside, is hearing these same words and feeling the same recognition you have been feeling throughout this message. Someone who has been carrying the same knowing, sitting with the same unresolved longing, asking the same quiet questions, in the middle of the same sleepless nights, is having the same experience of being seen and named and witnessed that you have been having in this message. You are part of a community that does not always know it is a community. Chosen ones in the waiting season often feel like the only one, like their particular combination of calling and difficulty and unresolved promise is uniquely theirs in a way that isolates rather than connects. But the truth is that the chosen ones have always found each other, across time and across geography, through the messages and the music and the stories and the moments of unexpected recognition that remind them that the road is not as empty as it sometimes looks from inside the walking of it. You are on that road, and the road is full of people who would recognize you immediately if they could see you, because they carry the same marks you carry. You are not the only one. You are part of something much larger than your individual season. Now, I want to give you one final exercise before this message releases you. It is brief, and it is gentle, and it is designed to do one specific thing: to allow you to leave this space lighter than you arrived. Not by pretending the weight was not real. Not by spiritually bypassing the difficulty of what has been named, but by doing something with the weight that is more intentional than simply continuing to carry it. I want you to picture yourself standing at that threshold. Again, the one from the visualization in the earlier part of this message. Stone around the doorway, solid ground beneath your feet, the light of what is ahead, warm and clear and specifically yours. And this time, I want you to notice that you are carrying something, not invisibly, not abstractly, but physically in this picture. You are carrying a bag, and in that bag is everything that has been named as the cost of this season. The relationships that did not get built, the career that did not go as far as it could have gone, the freedom to speak big dreams that got worn away by years of carrying them quietly, the faith in yourself that the waiting slowly eroded, the sleepless nights, the feeling of being wronged, the loneliness of being misunderstood, the weight of a promise that has not yet fully arrived. All of it is in the bag, and you have been carrying it for a long time. Now, at the threshold, I want you to set it down, not throw it away, not deny that it exists or that it mattered or that it cost you what it cost you, but set it down deliberately with both hands. Place it on the ground at the threshold and straighten up and feel what your body feels like without the weight of it on your shoulders. Feel the difference in how you stand when you are not bracing against that particular heaviness. Feel the freedom in your hands when they are no longer gripping the straps of something that was never meant to cross the threshold with you. The bag belongs to the season that is ending. It does not belong in the season that is beginning. What you learned from carrying it, the wisdom and the compassion and the depth and the strength that were built in you by the carrying, those cross with you. They are woven into you now. They are part of the braiding that the kava season produced in you. You do not lose them by setting the bag down. You only lose the weight. And the weight was never yours to keep. It was only yours to carry for as long as the carrying was part of the formation. The formation is complete. Set it down. Stand up straight. Look forward. Feel the threshold beneath your feet and the light ahead of you and the open hands that are now free to receive what is coming. That is the posture of the chosen one at the moment of Kairos. That is who you are right now, in this moment, in this room or this car or this quiet corner where you found this message. That is the truth of where you are standing. Now I want to speak to the practical matter of this channel and this work because it deserves to be said honestly and without embarrassment. The messages that come through here, this one, and the ones that came before it, and the ones that are being prepared for what comes next, they take time and care and sustained intentionality to bring into the world in the way they need to be brought. And they are reaching people, real people, in real seasons of waiting and difficulty and spiritual longing, who need to have what they are, carrying named before they can set it down. People who are sitting in their cars at 2 in the morning with no one to speak into their silence. People who have been faithful for years without a single external confirmation that the faithfulness is seen or known or counted. People who are one message away from choosing to keep going rather than giving up. If this message has been that for you today, if something in it has given you language for what you have been living, or rest in a season that has felt relentless, or the particular peace that comes from being accurately seen, I want to gently ask you to consider passing it forward. Like this video so that the platform knows it is reaching people who need it. Share it with one person, just one, who you sense is in a similar season, whose name came to mind at some point during this message, whose face appeared somewhere in the words that were spoken. Subscribe so that the next message, the one being prepared for the next chosen one in the next specific season, finds you before it finds someone less ready for it. And if you feel moved to support this work financially through a donation, the link is in the pinned comment below. I am not asking you to give what you do not have. I am asking you to give what you can if what you received today was worth it to you, not for me, so that this message can reach another chosen one who is walking into their Monday without anyone to name it for them. So that the person who is 3 days from giving up finds this before those 3 days are over. Every donation, regardless of the size, is part of how that reaching happens. And a hope restorer who has just set down their bag at the threshold and straightened up into their new season is exactly the kind of person who understands what it means to pass something forward. And one more thing before this message fully closes. If the genius wave met you somewhere in the middle of all of this, if the conversation about theta and gamma and brainwave entrainment and the 7-minute practice landed somewhere specific inside you, if something in you has been saying yes to it quietly throughout this message and that yes has not gone away, it is waiting for you in the pinned comment below. $39, 90-day guarantee, the authentic link and no other. If it is a yes for you, trust the yes. The chosen one who has learned to trust their own discernment does not second-guess the quiet knowing. The link is there. The door is open. You came into this message carrying something heavy. You have been seen in the carrying of it. You have been given language for it, and a practice to support you through the finals stretch of it, and the knowledge that you are standing at a threshold rather than still in the middle of a road with no end. You have been released into the step forward. Everything that has been prepared for you is on the other side of the threshold you are already standing on. Go. It is time. Even after the screen goes dark and the words stop and you carry this back into the ordinary texture of your day, something will remain. Not a feeling that fades by evening, something quieter and more durable than a feeling, a knowing. The kind that does not argue with circumstances or require conditions to survive. You were seen today. You were named today. You were found by something that was looking for you specifically. In this moment, in this season, with full knowledge of everything you have been carrying and everything you are about to walk into. That is not content. That is a visitation. And visitations leave a mark that no amount of ordinary noise can fully erase. Carry it gently. Carry it honestly. And when the days ahead ask you whether any of this was real, return to this moment. Return to the feeling of the threshold beneath your feet, and the bag set down, and hands open, and the light ahead that was warm in a way that had nothing to do with the weather. That was real. You were here, and heaven was here with you. Go well, chosen one. Go well.